teacher, was a comedian. He was talking about teaching, and like, so the kids, they want to be here? No, not really. Okay, and you got to teach them math. Do they want to learn math? Not really. All right, do we get to pick what kids are? No. It's just whoever lives closest to your school. So it's just you get whoever lives close to your school, and whatever level of skill they have, that's what you got, and good luck. And the expectations are to win. So get her done. And I think so. High school coaches have to be pretty innovative at times, and I think willing to change a little bit's good. And when you got them and you can just get really good at your base, I think those are teams that you see really go deep is when they figure out who they are early and really, really hone in on that and get that good work all year long on it. So hopefully we'll get there. Again, defensively, 2 weeks in a row, really good. We held them to a really low number of yards. We didn't give up the big play to the big kid other than throwing an interception to him. We didn't punt to him. Our punter did an awesome job. He averaged right at 40 yards while still kicking it away from that kid and or out of bounds. And so, there were definitely some positives that happened. And so we'll take those and hopefully repeat the positives and fix what needs fixing.
All right, man. Well, you ready to get started?
Yes, sir.
Here we go. Pull your notes up. And 5, 4, 3, 2. Terry Bennett back here on the Lago Vista football show, now joined by the head coach of the Vikings, Coach Creighton Phillips. And Coach, a tough loss against a very good Waco Conley team, 22-6. What were your thoughts on the game?
Well, positive and negative, as always. It's not always perfect. I thought the kids fought all the way through. Very athletic team. Ran us around pretty good defensively. Very stingy. Had them held to 8 until about halfway through the fourth quarter, and the next score kind of came on the offense off of an interception that they put them in pretty good field position. But I thought the kids played their butt off the entire time. Offensively, you're still struggling right now. We got the new faces on the offense and the two-way players and stuff that we're working through. That's just, it ain't there yet, if we're going to be honest about it. And hopefully we saw some stuff that we can recognize that we can fix, and had a good start to this week of practice, focused on getting better on ourselves mostly.
Well, defensively, I mean, you hold a very good running back, Braden Ford, to 70 yards. You hold one of the most electric wide receivers in the state, Jamari Vincent, to, I think, 30 yards. I mean, or 58 yards. That's a testament to that defense you've been talking about, playing against a very athletic team and yet still being able to hold some of their horses.
Yeah, really proud of Coach Curry and how his guys have responded to the new defense this year. They've really focused in on doing their job. There's still things that, there's a lot of teachable moments on Saturday morning, still. And so I think those guys are going to get even better. But we're really proud of the effort so far. Dealing with kids that are really good in space, is always, it's dangerous, right? They can take a little play and make a big play out of it. And so for our guys to rally and hustle to the ball and do what it takes, get pressure on the quarterback, been very stingy on the run for 2 weeks. I think they're gonna allow us to grow up as an offense, and so I'm excited about that.
Well, the offense, as you talked about, the growing pains of it. Most of the issues that you're seeing are these, correctable, teachable moments.
Yeah, I don't think it's a lack of athleticism. I think some of it's reps and just our numbers and kind of how it makes up. Our very best players need to play both ways, but in order to rest them, we've got to, pretty much everybody on the roster is getting on the field. And so when we get to those second level kids, we need more production out of them. Is really kind of what we learned over the first 2 weeks. That the next man up's got to be more ready than he has been. Not that the starters are perfect or anything like that, but we're going to need a little bit more of a holistic, just being solid all the way through and not having to really, adjust as much when we change kids out. And so we've really worked on that this week on getting proper reps and maybe scaling back a little bit to make sure that everybody understands. You like to offensively, you really like to keep adding every week. Little wrinkles. Here's this defense. We can do this against this defense, but we've had to temper it a little bit this week and say, this is what we're going to do. Let's get really good at this. Let's take a step back for everybody that's not caught up. You can take your front runners and just keep going and going and going, but when they're not on the field, you can't have a big step off. And so we were very, directed at that this week.
Well, and this is what we talked a little bit about last week. This is why you play a team like Conley. I mean, you could play a 3A team and out depth them and win 35-0 and not really learn something. But when you play a team like the Cadets and their athleticism on both sides of the ball, this is where your team will grow.
Right. Yeah, you have to be, you got to get exposed a little bit. I think if you don't run into something that's difficult, then you get to breeze through and you have this false sense of where your value's at or where your skill is at, because if you have a good player or two and they're able to make these plays for you and you're winning. You see junior high football sometimes, whatever team has the fastest kid wins, and really the other 10 on the field may not be very good, and when you play somebody good and they eliminate that one guy, then you're in trouble. So we understand that we've got to have 11 guys on the field that are all doing their job at a high level. And we have to all get at get to the same level. You're only as strong as your weakest link. So trying to eliminate those weak links.
Well, and it's funny because you said it right before we started recording, and you've said it many times before. For you, you want to win. You're a coach. You're competitive. But these non-district games, it's not just about winning the game.
No, it's definitely getting those reps up and down the depth chart and really learning your identity. And even, you feel really comfortable doing certain things. You have to match what your kids are capable of doing. And you can't be hard-headed, not at the high school level. You get what you get. Your kids live in your district and they come to your school, and that's who you get. You don't get to recruit kids that fit your scheme, things that you love to do. You need to adjust as a coach and do the things that the kids are most capable of doing. And and the earlier you find that out, the better off you are. And so that's, we're learning a little bit about ourselves. And when you play good teams, you learn more than when you play somebody that you can, you can make mistakes and, everything still works out. It's really tough. I think it's a much more teachable moment for a kid when they fail. You learn so much more from failures than you do from successes, I believe, because you're willing to be a little bit retrospective. Oh, okay, I wasn't successful doing this. What do I need to do, coach, to make this right? And then they get better at it. If they're, they're kind of shooting from the hip, doing their own thing, and it still works out, pretty hard to rein that in sometimes. So I think our kids have been really good this week, focused on, film study, focus on themselves, and just being a better version of themselves coming up this week.
This week, you're on the road to take on the Ducks of Taylor. They're 0-2, a team with a really good running back and a team that I think they thought they were going to be better defensively to start. So far, they've struggled. What do you see on the film when you look at the Ducks?
A lot of athleticism, speed all over the field. They do have a good back. Little quarterback's pretty good when he gets moving. They've got decent size. They've got a pretty good squad, really. They are young, though. They do have a lot of younger players on the team that I'm sure they're working through some of the same things that we are. And so, they're figuring out who they are and what their kids can do. And I think they're getting better and better each week. They played a good, Pflugerville Conley team this last week that had a couple of very explosive players that busted some big plays on them. Most of what they gave up defensively were big plays, a little bit of blown coverage, and but I think they're getting better each week, and they're going to be a great opponent for us this week.
Well, you were talking earlier about your offense and how y'all were approaching it this week. The way I understood, are you saying basically this is one of those weeks, it's back to the basics? We're running, a few set plays that we've got to make sure we can have them as our foundation plays to build off of going into the district play in a couple weeks?
Yes. So you got to have something to fall back on, right? You got to have your bread and butter, and kind of what we went into the season believing was going to be our bread and butter, and what has worked out so far, it hadn't matched up, and so we're going to continue to work on that while also integrating, plays that we're successful at, and why is it successful, why is it not? Really, how much of the same can we do over and over again to get really good at it and get comfortable at it, and then doing it, more of, instead of having lots of plays, we're probably going to push more for formations, and so we'll try to move the defense around a little bit with formations and motions, and do what we do, so the kids are most comfortable doing that. Different groups of kids are different. Some kids, sometimes you'll have a team full of kids that just pick up everything right away, and you can just say words and they will perform it. Others need lots of reps and doing the same thing over and over again. And we've got a mixture of that, this year. And so we're trying to, figure out what that balance is of new wrinkles versus do it again, do it again, do it again. And, I told the kids this week, we're not going to do it until we get it right. We're going to do it until we can't get it wrong. And they're like, oh, okay. That's, it's like, so when I say do it again, it's not drudgery, man. Somebody didn't do it exactly right. We got to do it again. We got to do it again. So we are trying to rip as many reps as possible in practice of doing the things that we really believe in, that these kids are going to be successful doing.